well as the content. And we're going to start with American Express. And I want to ask Brian to come on up. Brian Coleman. Brian is, his title is self-explanatory. He's the Vice President of Small Business and Customer Loyalty Marketing at American Express. Here, why don't you grab a seat?
Here?
Actually, go over there, so we're in the center. And grab that mic,
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
Those of you may remember who were here the first day. American Express and the campaign, in fact, that we're going to be talking a bit about won multiple awards, so congratulations.
Thank you.
And I knew nothing about that, by the way. I was as surprised as you were when I saw that. I knew we were going to talk about this today, and there we go. Because when I spoke to Brian about what we might talk about together, because I'm a longtime customer of yours.
Thank you.
I see your email marketing. I see the ways in which you relate to customers. And I've always been impressed. And I wanted to drill into something. And as we were talking about the palette of things that you work on, this program in particular that we're going to talk about really stood out. I think it checks off a lot of important boxes for marketers. But let me back up a little bit and tell us a little about your overall role at Amex and the part of the company and the part of the clientele that you're focused on.
Sure thing. Firstly, very excited to be here, and thank you for inviting me to this conversation. I have been with American Express for about 9 years now, and have a long history in digital marketing, but am new to email marketing, actually. So as I represent our program today on stage, I'm still learning about it as well. But I have close partners here with me today. My team, Jenna and Marissa, are here. Ergo is here. They're going to be talking a little bit later. We have a very close partnership with them and also with Movable Ink. So they can fill any gaps in that I leave behind after this conversation. I am responsible for customer marketing for the small business segment. So I work within the Global Commercial Group, which is responsible for providing payments and financing solutions to businesses of all sizes. And then for the small segment that I'm responsible for, I am responsible for everything post-sale of a new account or a new relationship. So we're responsible for onboarding new customers, teaching them about the various values and benefits of their product, and then I'm responsible for growing and retaining relationships. And I do that across a variety of programs. Email is a very important program, but I'm responsible for our phone-based servicing programs as well. And we do a whole bunch of marketing through a variety of channels.
Well, that's good, because I think I want to pull back from the email too and talk about how this fits within the larger messaging. But
Great.
all right, you're my card company. I'm getting emails from you all the time.
Yes.
I'm telling that my account's ready, my statement's ready, all of that. Because of that, what's the key challenge that you have in the email channel with your customers to maintain that relationship? Because to some degree, there's a kind of tedium that sets in. And in fact, you may have the opposite problem that a lot of other companies have, in the sense that we're so used to seeing you in our inboxes that we're not sure whether to even bother.
That's right. So I will tell you that email is a very popular channel among all of our colleagues. It is our largest scale outbound marketing channel. And so then it is very popular to use for a variety of purposes. So what we are doing is, and I think that we've made great progress here with our e-newsletter, is we're finding ways to have that asset serve a broader variety of purposes, but always with the customer being in the center, right? We always need to know what our customer needs and when they need it, and then be disciplined about what content we serve them through email marketing. And so sticking to the discipline can sometimes be the challenge.
Let's talk about, you did research in order to understand what would pop with your users and what would be relevant to put them at the center. Tell us a little about the research process that you went through to try to identify those elements.
Sure. So I'll talk a little bit about the small business customer just to set the context for my response to this question. So the small business customer is a very interesting customer. It really is a hybrid customer. I always have to answer the question, are you a B2B marketer or are you a B2C marketer? And the answer is both, because our customer really is an individual who operates a business and doesn't see a line between who they are as a person and who they are as a professional. What my observation has been is that the preferences of this segment are similar to consumer, but the expectation is even higher. They're even more time-starved than the average consumer. They have an even more precise understanding of the value of their time. And so what they need is they need to quickly see what value you bring to them. And so the work that we have done, or what we have learned, is that what works out well is giving them meaningful insights that can drive a strategic decision that they can make for their business. I can actually, because I haven't shown anything yet.
Yeah, let's look.
Let's look
let's,
at
let's show what emails we're talking about.
Let's look at
here.
something, right? So this is a view of some of the content modules of our e-newsletter program. And I think the one that's interesting is actually the third from the left, right? So this is actually categorizing the areas of spend for a customer, right? So if you think about it, a customer might not really understand their cost profile. We all know that money is the lifeblood of any business, and managing money is really hard for a small business owner, especially someone that's newer to operating a business. We as a big corporation have lots and lots of people managing our money, but a business owner needs to do that. And if they can do that well and make strategic decisions quickly, they can move on to then running their core business. So here, in this data insights module, we're giving them a view on their cost profile. So like, did you actually know you're spending a lot on these, what you might not know, like these lower consideration purchases in general merchandise category? Maybe a business owner would decide to try to limit their expenses there so they could spend more on some core business services. So this content is performing extraordinarily well.
I think we should pull back to characterize this newsletter and what you're doing here,
Sure.
Because the actual content that's being driven here is truly personalized. It's coming out of their own account and their own spending habits. You're showing their own behaviors back to them. That's
it's making sense of their data. It's helping them make sense of their data.
So I'm getting a month. Is it monthly?
Yep, it's monthly.
I'm getting a monthly portrait of myself.
That's right.
Through the lens of my credit card use.
Exactly.
Right. And I think that there are a couple of things that I want to drill into here.
Sure.
How did you collect all of that data internally? Tell us that process. This is a lot of data modules we're talking about, and I want to go into that piece too.
Yep.
But internally, how did American Express gather all of these pieces of data? What was the challenge in breaking down the silos internally?
So obviously, we have access to an enormous data set, and so it can be an overwhelming undertaking. So my team, in partnership with Ergo, conducted some research to just ask some of our customers, what do you want? And they wanted more easily consumable insights about their cost profile, for example. And so then, after having that customer insight, then we go and look for the data that we need to bring that to life for them. And then we do some A/B testing to figure out what version of that is best.
Is that all fully centralized at Amex, or was that a process in and of itself to bring all that together?
That's a process. So we've made good progress in centralizing the right data sets. I know this has been a common conversation topic this week. My observation has been that I think this is really important. Sometimes marketers skip the first step of understanding why data is, or why systems and data are the way they are currently, right? So at a big company like ours, data is very important for many different purposes, right? For credit decisions, for fraud detection, and the teams responsible for those different activities have different needs in terms of access to data. There are obviously different data security requirements that are always top priority for us. And so I don't know what the future state looks like from a systems perspective, from a back-end system architecture standpoint. I can tell you from a marketing perspective, our ambition, and I think we're making good progress, but still have opportunities to do a lot more, is to have a totally unified experience on the front end from a customer standpoint, right? So we want to treat you, Steve, the same. We will always want to be able to anticipate your need and to know what you need and to treat you consistently across channels. So I will rely on my systems and data people to figure out the right back-end architecture for that. But my
how
team
many
and I
data points are we
has that as our
talking
vision.
about? And what sort of decision-making did you go through in determining how you would limit this? Because obviously, for someone who's spending through your card, there's just massive number of data points that can be used. So tell me about how many data points we're talking about per customer and how you are making decisions about what's enough.
So I think the number that has been shared with me is that we're regularly using a few hundred data points, and I think we're always testing and experimenting. So that's not a static number. But in terms of some of the content that we're sharing to our customers, in terms of what performs best, that is using about 300 different data elements.
Okay. And it can be specific to different customers?
Yes.
Which ones you're
That's
using
right.
in?
That's
right.
right.
I want
I mean, because it's account information, truly every single E&L is, no two look the same, right? Because it is account-based data.
And and are you dynamically changing those? Are you responding to how people are behaving and responding to modules
Yes.
so that you're essentially testing with every user?
Yes. Yeah. Actually, there's a good example of that. We tested some new marketing content around our employee card program this year. That is a valuable product feature for many of our customers, is to centralize all spending onto one account, and to do that for our larger small business customers that have employees that are purchased on behalf of the business, to do that through an employee card. And so we ran some experiments earlier this year where we assessed interest by serving up some general content about employee cards, and then bringing the customer down the purchase funnel with more specifics. Then for customers who are actively enrolled in employee cards but not using them, we served content to reinforce the value proposition of using employee cards in terms of more efficient account management, opportunity to maximize rewards, et cetera.
Are you also prioritizing within the format too? Are modules
Yes.
shifting places so that you're as you're
yeah.
interacting with the email, as you're showing interest in different modules, they're actually changing you're changing the format.
That's
for
right.
your behaviors.
We do a lot of experimentation.
I guess I really want to underscore the importance of just generally what you're doing here. You're taking the customer and making them the hero of their own email.
Yep.
And you're taking data, and instead of simply leveraging it, you are actually showing it back to them, giving them a portrait of themselves, making them the star of the email itself, which I think is a really important point.
Yeah.
And we've heard some others here over the last few days who are doing something like that, or at least contemplating moving in that direction, because it checks off a whole bunch of problems and boxes about privacy, about what the value is of the data that a company is collecting on you, and essentially you are showing them the value that you can give them by the data that you're collecting, and that is so rare now. We're collecting data and we're not using it, or we're collecting data and nobody knows why the hell we have it.
Sure.
So and I'm curious, what do you get from your customers about this? What do you hear back from them?
So we hear some qualitative feedback. We have a quote here about the value that the e-newsletter brought to them. So they actually, one of the modules we run is around recurring subscription charges. And we all, even as consumers, right, have a lot of recurring charges that we kind of set and forget about. Right. And so in this instance, a customer saw that their subscription fee increased dramatically, so they could take action based on that. And then from in terms of a quantitative perspective, one data point that I find very interesting, and you actually asked us, based on our prep session, I went to find this information with Marissa. How often do people go back to the email?
Yeah.
If they go back to the email, then they've got to be happy with it, right? So the interesting data point there is that we actually looked at 3 or more visits to the email, to a particular email. Because 2 or more could be accidental, right? 3 or more. So 51% of our customers come back to their email 3 or more times.
And the content is real time.
The content
so it's
is real time.
I mean, that's why I asked the question, is because I'm always curious about this. I hear about these programs often that are real-time refresh data every time they open the email. It repopulates. But I don't know if that's a behavior that email users are really up for, or whether they use. But your data suggests that people know that that when they're opening this email, they're actually almost like opening their personal account on the web. They're actually getting refreshed in live data.
That's right. And we do timestamp the content, which does a couple things. It makes sure that we're obviously transparent with our customer of the vintage of the data, but it also says the data is fresh.
Exactly. We need to communicate that capability.
That's right.
It's a simple thing, but without it, nobody really knows.
Exactly.
That's not how we're used. So I want to drill into some of the pieces of the execution of this great idea. First of all, is Yes, we have the data. It's a great idea. Make somebody the hero of their data, of their email. Show them the data back. But then that raises the question of, how do you present data?
Yeah.
So you've got all of this, you have all of these raw stats about someone, but still finding the way to communicate that in an effective way, especially visually, I think is a real challenge here when you take on this idea.
So I'm going to go back to the segment insight first, which is business owners have a very high standard for the value of their time, right? And so what that means is they're going to open up any piece of content, including an email content, and they're going to decide in a second or two, am I going to spend my time with this or not, right? And so I do not have a design background. We have a great team at Ergo that helps us with that. But the purpose of design is to quickly demonstrate the value of the content of the email. And so that's what we work with our team to do.
And so what form does that usually take? In terms of visually, what are the ways that the data translate best?
Right, so it's obviously very visual, infographic, bar charts do very well, complemented with select usage of imagery, trackers, et cetera. And all that content performs very well.
Now, you told me, you gave me a number of how many content modules are involved here.
We have many, hundreds. So most of our customers, it varies, but we'll see 6 to 8 modules, and each module has many different versions. So when you run the combinations math on that, it becomes many pretty quickly, right?
But there are literally hundreds of possible ones, but each customer probably is seeing 5 or 6?
5 or 6 modules.
Okay,
but then within each module, obviously, the content is different.
An interesting question that's come up over the last few days is personalization fatigue. And whether you see that. Is that these emails, as personalized and compelling as they are, over time they may become rote, they may become boring. What sort of fatigue do you see, and how do you deal with it?
So this is what's most important when we make decisions about personalization. The success metric, or the measure of success, there's not one metric. The measure of success is that a customer experiences our marketing, in this case the e-newsletter, and they're able to make a better strategic decision about their business because of that content. And so that's what informs all of our decisions, right? We don't like to personalize just for the sake of personalization, right? We like to do it with the purpose of achieving that end that I just described to you.
Well, let's then walk into the question of metrics. How are you measuring success? First, what sort of results are you seeing that are encouraging? And what do you consider the hard metrics of success for this?
So our product is interesting, right? Because with a credit product, you are making decisions whether to use it or not every single day, right? We all know that we have many options when we decide how we pay for things, not just credit cards, cash, check, a variety of options. And so what we do is we do have a rigorous measurement process where we hold out a small population and we don't treat them, in this case with the E&L, and then we look at the performance of that population in terms of their product usage versus those that do engage with the E&L. And we do see a substantial impact of those who are served with E&L.
So the metric is raw spending. I mean, they're actually using the card more as they become more aware of their behaviors. Interesting. Which is almost counterintuitive, right? You would almost think that as someone is becoming more aware of their spending patterns, they actually would be maybe more disciplined about their spending, but instead they're actually increasing their use of the card. Or
those things are not necessarily in conflict, right? So I just made the point that we have many different options in terms of how we pay for things, right? So you could be reducing your overall spend if that's your business objective. You could reduce your overall spend, but put more of that spend on American Express because you're getting these valuable insights.
Right, you're able to see it on a single console. You're recognizing
strategic decisions about your business.
What were the missteps? I mean, I think Marissa actually asked this question the first day, and
that
of course we had first panel is that we learned more about these things from what went wrong and how you course corrected.
I think so. We're very happy with the performance of the program. The opt-out rates are very low. The open rates and click-to-open rates are extremely high. So we're very happy with the performance of the program. That being said, I'm going to go back to the point I made on discipline, which is that we do a variety of email. I think this is common across many organizations. I've heard that from other brands over the course of the last couple days. And so I don't know if it's a misstep necessarily, but we do want to bring more of the discipline of our E&L to other email marketing programs. To make sure that the customer's always in the center.
And in this case, you have the advantage of it being, this is set in stone. It's a monthly, and it makes sense. There's a sense to this, of a monthly review of and you don't abuse the privilege, and you give it to them once a month, and that cadence makes sense.
That's right.
So now I want to pull back into that larger picture.
Yeah.
How have the learnings and the insights from this program informed and changed other aspects of your marketing? Now that you realize this and you have this somewhat different content relationship with your own user, and you're seeing them interact with the email, you're seeing their priorities. How does this impact the rest of it? Does this start reflecting out so it's seen elsewhere in their relationship with you?
Yeah. That's part of the fun part of my job, is I get to look across a variety of programs and channels, and it's really fun. The great thing about the e-newsletter is that we have the scale, so we can test quickly and then bring learnings and insights to other channels. So we're starting to have conversation about bringing some of this spend profile presentation data into our call center environment to offer up insights to customers when they call us for servicing.
Wow, that's interesting.
So yet to be achieved ambition, but something that we're starting to talk about.
That's because I think that's sort of brand consistency. Where they get to learn, they can learn through email, having a certain relationship with the brand, and then that starts reflecting elsewhere in all their other touch points. That's fascinating. What are some of the biggest lessons from all of this in how to execute and where to keep things on course?
I'm going to go back to the discipline point. Not just in terms of how we email and when we email, but also about how we test, right? Like sometimes our eyes are bigger than our stomach. And so I think we need to continue to be very disciplined about having a question about what our customer needs, coming up with a structured test to help us answer that question. And to prioritize that over the thousands and thousands of tests that you could run. So we're always trying to keep ourselves disciplined.
Let me poke at the discipline question a little more, and maybe get some examples. So in terms of, say, cadence and how much you're actually hitting, the brand is hitting someone over the course of the month. In addition to this monthly newsletter that's exceptional in its execution and its content and of high interest, what are you learning, or what are your policies and your disciplines about the rest of the month and the other kinds of email that's coming?
So we do, I will say, we do send a lot of servicing emails that are event-based, right? So if there's fraud detected on your account, there's a real-time servicing communication about that. So that is some of the volume that I don't see changing. That's a very important part of our service offering to our customers. When it comes to marketing emails, we will send email communications about other products and services that we offer with the intent of creating awareness, consideration, and ultimately purchase of those additional products and services. We are testing ways to bring that type of marketing into our e-newsletter program. So that we want to do some integration there.
How about the reverse? Because one of my questions that comes to mind is, as a hero email like this, a newsletter like this, gains credibility and gains confidence and respect from your users. If you start seeing that then wash over your other emails, where you start seeing that they're simply more receptive generally to your overall communications. I
think that's true. I think that the next step for us is to find new ways to bring those two sets of content together into one experience.
Right.
So that's what we're
or to find
having
ways
a lot
to
of
take
internal
modules
conversation
out of
about.
this or things out of this into the other marketing
That's
emails.
right.
So,
That's
so
right.
they're so that
Exactly.
they actually are connecting these. They're
That's right.
seeing the same voices talking to them with the same attitude towards
That's
the
right.
consumer. Great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do we have some time for questions? If any of you have questions of Brian? Anybody? I'm not seeing it. I want to, well, let me follow up on the, oh, there is? I'm sorry. Can we get a mic over there?
Chuck Davis from Webula. Because you're being so engaging in the inbox, are you being phished more? Because now that I'm used to opening and looking at Amex emails, it seems like I'd be an easier phishing target for somebody who looks like Amex to update my account information.
I have not heard that. I'm looking at Marissa there just to confirm that I'm right. But she's shaking her head no, confirming that I'm right, I think. Right? Okay. It's a good question.
You're using mobile examples here. Are most of these being opened on mobile? And is that then?
Do you know our mobile versus desktop mix, Marissa? 60 being
40 for
mobile,
mobile.
60% being mobile.
So understanding what modules are most important at the very top is especially critical.
Yep.
One last question about the technology. The
Sure.
backend technology.
Ooh, you're going to stump me finally.
No, no,
I've made it.
I don't.
I've made it like 25 minutes into this
Okay,
conversation
all right.
without being stumped yet.
Well, okay, but that's.
I knew you were going to get me.
Well, first of all, you're free to share or not who's actually doing this, who's managing 300 plus content modules in background and doing this live. And there have got to be serious choke points there. There have to be things that you have to get involved in to fix. What have been the learnings about making a technology that can work at this sophisticated real-time level?
Yeah, so we have a big team across both our internal team and our partner team. The hardest part, I think, is probably testing, right? To make sure all the content is as it should be. So we have a very robust testing process. And then keeping all of the data connections live is obviously requires a lot of rigor. And so where I get involved is to exert some influence to make sure that those connections stay live.
And those are connections that are coming from various parts of the company.
That's right.
So that's
right.
I mean, that coordination has got to be really complicated.
There's a lot of coordination.
Okay. Brian Coleman, thank you very much.
Thank you,
Congratulations
Steve.
on a great
you.
idea.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.